Well, hi there, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us today. My name is Ian Robertson. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Harbour Authority. I wish to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people and the Esquimalt Nation and Songhees Nation, whose relationship with the land continues to this day. As an organization, we're very proud to work with both nations as part of our member agencies and board of directors. Before I formally introduce my guest over there, just a couple of things that if you've got a question during today's webinar, if you could use the Q&A feature below, and if you've got any technical issues, use the Q&A box below to help you with that. So now I'd like to formally introduce Christina Clarke, CEO of the Songhees Development Corporation. Christina, welcome, and perhaps I could get you to just to start off and describe how does the Songhees Development Corporation fit within the Songhees Nation. So again, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I actually am Waterside right now, and I'd like to acknowledge the Chiano First Nation, on whose lands I have the honor of living and remotely working. So I'm right by Beecher Bay. It's quite beautiful out here. So I'm the CEO of the Songhees Development Corporation, and that was incorporated in 2019 to fulfill the goals and aspirations of the nation for economic development as is stated in the 2017 to 2027 strategic plan. So the decision was to formalize our economic development business governance structure into a corporate form. So we have the Songhees Development Limited Partnership, which holds the interest to all of our businesses and Songhees interests in all of our partnerships. And then we have the Songhees Development Corporation, which operates the subsidiary companies of Songhees Nation. And those subsidiary companies are the Songhees Nation Investment Corporation. That is for the purpose of real property investments off reserve. There's a Songhees Events and Catering that some people know as the Songhees Seafood and Steam Food Truck, but it's much greater than that. Then we have Songhees Tours and Songhees Innovation Center, which is unincorporated and operates as part of the Songhees Development Corporation. The Songhees Development Limited Partnership also holds Songhees interest in partnerships and joint ventures, and those would include Matulia, which is a partnership with Esquimalt Nation for the acquisition of the Rock Bay property, and Hamasan Holdings, which is also a partnership with the Esquimalt Nation, and that is where the Sailor Seaside RV Haven operates. We're quite proud of that business. And finally, the Sailor Sea Industrial Services, which is a partnership between Songhees, Esquimalt, and Raumax Construction. So that's what our company does. That we also provide management services to the nation for emerging economic development opportunities, which would include cannabis retail.
Okay, so in terms of governance structure, I mean, do you report into Chief and Counsel or to Chief Sam directly?
How this works is our subsidiary companies report to our master limited partnership, and that reports to Chief and Counsel, and through them to the nation members. So my immediate bosses is the independent board of directors of the Songhees Development Corporation, and then we report to Chief and Counsel, and through them to the membership as a whole.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I know today, or we kind of talked that the reason for the kind of conversation today is for each of us to share kind of an update on COVID-19 and how each of us are doing. So I'm wondering if, Christina, you could talk about perhaps how COVID-19 has affected you and your role as part of the Songhees Development Corporation, and then maybe speak to what the impact has had on the broader Songhees Nation.
Yeah, like most First Nations in Canada, Songhees is a vulnerable community to situations like this due to overcrowding, previously existing health conditions and other social determinants of health. And there's a very real fear and memory and oral history passed down about smallpox and the Spanish influenza. So the gut reaction was to act immediately. And so the Wellness Center was closed on March 12th. And we began communicating with the regional and provincial health officials for emergency preparedness. we focused mainly on food security for our nation members and ensuring that they didn't, those living in households with vulnerable family members didn't have to leave to go to high exposure jobs and bring the disease back into the community. So food security was partly to support that. From a business perspective, the closure of the Songhees Wellness Center had an immediate and massive impact. I mean, for our events and catering company, it is the Songhees Wellness Center in most respects. So we had to lay off 14 full and part-time staff, and they were able to transition to other employment or to the CERB, which we're very thankful for. And we were able to maintain our management team with the help of the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program. Very grateful for that as well. So in the absence of events, weddings and conferences and all sorts of things at the Songhees Wellness Center, we're focusing on the food truck, including its activation at Ship Point, which I'm sure we'll talk about together. And we're active at farmers markets. And that's including the Saanich Fairgrounds Farmers Market, the Moss Street Market, and the Esquimalt Farmers Market. So we have rooftop vegetables from our gardens, and we have vinaigrette dressings, and generally we have bannock bites. So we'll have a bannock bar, and those all always sell out. We just keep making more and more and more of them. They're like bannock bites in different flavors, fruit flavors, delicious. Chocolate, all kinds of flavors. So we're focused on that, and we're exploring new types of revenue streams that we might be able to do, like delivery. We already do box lunches for our outside catering, but there's less companies having in-person meetings. What we'd like to do is offer to some of those that they can host a meeting with their staff and send a catering delivery to everybody. So for a fun corporate event, that's something that we're planning. On the tour side, we were very disappointed not to be able to launch the cultural canoe tours in its first formal operation as a business this year. We had intended to hire 17 people. Very disappointing not to be able to do that. It's just not safe to gather, and we have no international tourism, so it really is a difficult time. What we did was we switched our tourism to focus on awareness of us in the market, wanting folks to know that we're here, and wanting folks to know about some of the exciting things that we're still able to do. And one of those is a virtual tour, the 7 Signs Tour. And this is using the Spindle World Tour, the 7 Signs of Lekwungen. And we have a series of videos for that, where you can go to each, you can do it, take a map, do the walking tour, bring your phone with you, and watch a video at each stop, where community members will talk to you about what's important about that space. And we're offering that as a free tour. And it's for familiarity for folks, and just to keep the marketplace aware of Songhees Nation, and that we are in tourism and planning on building upon the successes that we have this year. And we're quite happy to be able to share with locals and people that come from around the province and the rest of Canada. There is still interest in Indigenous tourism in those markets. So we're doing our best to meet them. And we plan to add an actual walking tour of the Spindle World, the 7 Signs Tour in live form too, as safety allows. And we're seeking some support funds to help keep our catering company viable during the slowdown period, so that it's there for us when we start back up again.
So lots of ways in which you've transitioned. I was going to make a note for this at the end of our conversation, but I'm wondering, for those that have joined us, if they want more information around the tour or around how they can contact you to get the food truck to an event or anything that they're planning, where can they go to get more information on
We're
that?
making it super easy for everyone.
Good.
We have launched the Explore Songhees brand, and you can Google Explore Songhees and you'll find all of our social media channels, and it'll connect you up to all of our offerings. That's food and tourism. Okay. And other exciting things that happen. We're also share through there some art and culture and language with folks. So Explore Songhees is your way to find out about Songhees, and a Google search of that will get you right there. And we're going to keep building on what you find when you go there.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, you touched upon the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy Program, the CEWS, and you talked about the fact that it's been beneficial for your organization. And I think I just wanted to add, it's also really been beneficial for us as an organization. we're a relatively small organization. I think on an annual basis, our salary and admin budget would be close to $3.5 million. That's obviously been reduced because, like yourself, we've had to, unfortunately, lay off staff on a temporary and a permanent basis. But the benefit to us has been close to $900,000. And that has really been very, very beneficial for us as an organization. As a landlord, we are participating in the voluntary secret program. And I think a lot of people may not know that it is a voluntary program that's out there for landlords to participate in. And despite the fact that we are going to see about a $3 million loss this year with the loss in crews, we are still taking the initiative and to participate in this program. And we're grateful for the government for both of these programs. It sounds like it's helped out both of our organizations. So that is really, really good news. I mean, you touched upon some of the areas in which you've been able to, this is maybe an overused word, but you've kind of pivoted from, what you had planned. And I know we're in a real time of change and opportunity. Are there any, can you reflect on or draw upon maybe any positives that we've seen or that you've seen in the short term?
Yeah, there's this immediate awareness of some of the social injustices that we have in our society, that the pre-existing conditions that made it impact some groups more deeply and profoundly than others, such as the care of seniors, infrastructure in Indigenous communities, those sorts of things. So that awareness, the plight of the homeless. As time goes on and people's nerves are frayed and things are, the public is having more difficulties, there's a little bit of a sliding back towards sort of the blaming and things that happen. But I hope that we, as a society in general, carry with us a greater awareness of some of the injustices that exist and efforts to improve them. Because there's been efforts during this crisis, and I've been really proud to be from BC and to be from Canada, and with the way that we're responding to this crisis. So that's something that's positive, is just this awareness that we're really lucky, the society that we have. There's still changes we need to make, but we're really lucky that we have the ability to make them. And I think the willingness to do those things. The other positive is new revenue streams and the time to develop them. The virtual tour, it might have been years. That's one of those great ideas that you get, but actually carrying it out, taking the time to do it is challenging. So this is an opportunity to do that. We're also developing an online gallery for our gift store, and different ideas about box dinners, dinner parties, like Zoom dinner parties. Yeah, we had, just yesterday we had an idea for a bentwood box dinner party idea.
Okay.
And so there's lots of fun things that we can do, but you're coming up with fun things in the context of, we're either going to make it or we're not. So the stakes are really high. So it's kind of hard to have fun with it, but it is an innovative time when there's something like this, and that innovation can be really fun and creative. So that part of it I'm enjoying.
That's good to know. Just a reminder to everyone that's on this call, if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A feature as I continue to have a conversation with Christina, and we'll allow a lot of time for Q&A at the end. So, we're, for lack of a better word, we're kind of into COVID now for, my gosh, it seems like forever. It's kind of coming up 5-6 months. And I often reflect on this, and maybe I'll comment after you, but is there anything that, if you knew then what you know now, would you have done anything differently, or would you have pursued anything differently, Christina?
I'm not sure that I would have, because the sands were shifting under our feet so constantly.
Yeah.
So it was hard to even have a planning period to work with. I mean, at first it was just in the weeks. And then, okay, we can look at 3 months. Yeah. Now, with the extension of the wage subsidy, we can look at the rest of the year. That's till December. But we can look at the whole fiscal year and get a little bit of certainty, which takes some of the pressure off and makes us able to focus on just positive growth. But I think the only other thing that I wish I maybe was ready to go with more proposals for the funding has been very competitive. And we have some great, very fundable programs, and we've submitted a number of proposals, but it's very competitive. So I wish I would like to have been better prepared or just more in tune with those funding agencies that give out money like that, because it seemed to come available and disappear overnight. But I understand there has been some additional funds announced, so we'll keep on applying. But other than that, it's just, I think we've all done our best just to take this as it comes.
Yeah, I think, I've been reflecting on this to say, okay, is there anything that I or we as an organization could have done differently? And to be quite honest, I think as an organization, we probably could have done a better job of communicating. If there's one thing that I've learned through this process, is it's not just communicating once or twice, but it's that ongoing communication. I think that as an organization, my first focus was on this inside the organization and communicating internally. And I think we did a really good job of that. I think I thought upon reflection, and while we were communicating using email out to our stakeholders and our tenants, there's nothing like picking up the phone and giving someone a call and just saying, how are you doing? And I think if there's something I could reflect on and said that I think that I could have done a better job of, it would have been that, because there's nothing like picking up the phone, even if there's nothing to say or nothing that you have new to offer, but it's just extending that opportunity to talk. And we're all going through so many different emotions. I can imagine, for a number of the tenants that we have on our properties, this is their business, this is their livelihood, and they are in real challenge. They're in a challenging time right now, and while we'd like to do everything we can, and we are doing everything we can to assist them. I just wish there were more. But I think I look back and go, yeah, I think we could have done a better job in terms of outreach and that proactive communication. And that's something that I would take away. And if I were to reflect on this or go on a speaking tour or write a book, that's probably what I would talk about. So I think for all of us, there's quite a bit of learning. The other thing that I've reflected on is this is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. A couple of months ago, I thought, oh, okay, let's just get through this particular season. Things will turn around in 2021. And just recently, I've been quite forthright with the fact that a couple of months ago, if you'd asked me, would we see a return to the 21 cruise season, I would have said 2 months ago, oh, for sure, it'll be back. We don't know to what degree, but it will be back. And now 2 months later, I'm reflecting that I believe there is some jeopardy of the 21 cruise season. So I keep telling the team that I work with is to, take your vacation, take some breaks. You need to recharge your batteries. This is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that's the other thing I might have, prepared this organization for a little better.
I agree with you on that one. It's it was hard to do in the beginning with so much uncertainty. So it's easy to look back and say we wish we were able to do that. But when you're in an emergency, we all turned inward at first before then you start turning outward. But the more we reach out to one another, I'm finding the easier it is. And that includes, like, we have one of our companies, we have tenants, we have some tenants that are impacted, and we really care about those people and the success of their business. And we I mentioned this in an interview recently that was with the Black Press, is that nobody wins when you lose a tenant. We work hard to get good tenants, and it's a business relationship that we want to maintain, and we'll do everything we can to allow that to happen. The other comment I wanted to make about the planning window and it being the long haul, one thing that I'm coming to terms with is don't just have this point where there's a switch that gets flipped and everything goes back to normal, that the impact will be more long term and how it's felt. And in order to survive, we can't put off we can't do it by borrowing a whole bunch and putting off to the future, because that could become impossible. So we have to find ways of doing business that can sustain themselves to get us through. As a country, we are borrowing from our future, and we have to. But to the extent that I can avoid borrowing from the future for our companies, I will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One final question before we kind of open it up to Q&A. Tell me about the Explore Songhees initiatives that you've embarked upon in the Inner Harbor, and what can residents and the visitors that we are seeing, what can they expect to see over the next few months while we kind of wind down summer and into fall?
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you to you and to GVHA. Your entire team was really supportive with us to help us find a way to survive during this time. So the food truck being at Ship Point with the Explore Songhees activation is really, really a huge help. So you'll find our food truck there, first thing, Thursday to Sunday, 11 to 4. And they have various specials. And if you follow us on social media, you can find out what those are. And watch for our bannock bar. It pops up there, it pops up at farmers markets with flavored bannock bites. We will be setting up an Explore Songhees info tent to give people information about our tourism and hospitality offerings and about Songhees culture and history. As we move forward with the phased restrictions lifting, we see an opportunity, and your team is agreeing that we're starting to have the ability to have 1 or 2 artists doing a demonstration for a few people to watch at a time. So that's something that we're excited about, as art is a big part of culture. It's a big part of really everything we do. We like to highlight the many amazing artists that we have. And so we're hoping to do that at Explore Songhees as well. So you find us at Ship Point, very bright colored food truck with octopus on the side, can't miss it. You can also find us at the Moss Street Market on Saturdays, and the Esquimalt Market on Thursday evenings, and the Saanich Fairgrounds on Wednesday evenings. That's what Explore Songhees. We're going to continue to add offerings. Walking tours will start from that place, so you'll be able to find out about the virtual tour, and when we launch the actual walking tours, you'll be able to take one of those too from Ship Point.
Okay, fantastic. I've got a couple of questions coming in, and one of the questions is, can you talk about any of the partnerships and how you're working with the Esquimalt Nation through this challenging time?
Yeah, I mean, Esquimalt Nation is one of our biggest business partners. Like, we do a lot with Esquimalt Nation, and we've got a lot of projects on the go that aren't so much impacted by COVID. You know, our property acquisition. I mean, we're very, very proud. Both nations were very, very proud of Salish Seaside RV Haven that we did together. And there's more that we can do there too. I mean, we're looking at a cafe and having tourism offerings there. And with the Rock Bay, the opportunities for that piece of property it's an amazing area that Victoria has identified as the innovation district. And we're excited to be part of that. And we're working closely with the Esquimalt Nation, both at a business level and at the council level, as we talk about what's best for the nation members as we move forward. So they're a great partner. Also Ralmax, and that goes back to GVHA and late Chief Robertson and Andy Thomas, late Chief Andy Thomas, with Ian Maxwell, and they're talking about the industrial harbor and the working harbor, and talking about the Songhees and Esquimalt's history of working on the harbor and their mutual desire to work together on the harbor. So they formed the Salish Sea Industrial Services. So that's been an amazing partnership. But we've had so many partnerships that have helped us move forward. With Camosun, UVic, and Royal Roads, for example, always looking at innovative programming to meet the needs that we have. The Chamber of Commerce, and for any business, I would recommend the Chamber of Commerce as a way to stay connected, to know that we're in this together, and have people in the same situation as you, talking about how they're getting through it. So that partnership and our involvement, our membership in the Chamber has been really important. Same with tourism, our destination Greater Victoria. We're a new member. They're excited about what we'll have to offer in the future, and they've been promoting us already, and we're happy to have new products to launch. GVHA is a big partner of Songhees and Esquimalt, as you know. And I would also name SIP. Like GVHA, SIP has in its core mandate the First Nations economic development piece. So they've lived up to that. That organization has very much lived up to that, the importance of working with the 10 First Nations in the South Island region. And part of that work is an Indigenous Economy Committee on the Rising Economy Task Force. We're looking at the economic recovery in the region. So very thankful for SIP to be leading the charge. I know you're involved in one of the sectors. Pretty much everyone in Victoria is involved in helping brainstorm. We put together an amazing brains trust of people to come up with ideas and to come up with recommendations that are going to help our region come out the other side of this with a really bright future. So it's all relationships and partnerships are extremely important to Songhees Nation, and it's at the heart of our value statement, and that value statement carries forward into business. So we very much care about the people we work with, and we want to work through any challenges we have together, and that's all part of meaningful relationships. So we fit right in that way.
Well, good. There's a question coming up, probably one for me to address. The question I've got here is airlines are increasing PPE. What will be done for crews to keep people safe? Will passengers have to wear masks? That's a great question. And you know what? I don't think we have the full answer to that. What I do know is that two of the major cruise lines, two of the major ones that operate in North America and around the world and come into Victoria, Royal Caribbean and Norwegian, have partnered together to come up with protocols that they will present to the U.S. Center for Disease Control, and we don't have a glimpse yet as to what those protocols will be. I do know that Royal Caribbean has trademarked the brand Sea Mask, so one can only speculate that perhaps masks will be part of interaction on a cruise ship. We have heard that the cruise lines, when they do resume, they may only book to 50 to 60% of their capacity to allow for more spacing amongst the passengers. GVHA has been taking a leading role with other ports across the country to work with the Cruise Line Industry Association, CLIA, to say, okay, well, whatever's developed by the U.S. Center for Disease Control needs to be vetted by Canadian specialists, Canadian epidemiologists, and through our outreach, we've been able to connect leading epidemiologists in Canada to our CLIA counterparts in the United States. So I believe it's going to be a wait and see. The cruise lines have indicated that right now they've got a no sail order until October 31st of this year. Voluntarily, they've decided to do that. Questionable whether we'll see any Christmas or New Year's cruises, but if we do, it'll be a good chance for us to see what they're doing on board, what the results are before we see them here in April and May of next year. So again, I think it's going to be a wait and see attitude as to what the cruise lines specifically do. Another question that's come up, and maybe I'll flip this one over to you, Christine, and then I'll kind of come back and comment on it. It's got, with the impacts of COVID on certain industries more than others, how will these impacts shift how you explore future business opportunities post-COVID? So looking, I think, past COVID, or after COVID's over, whenever that may be, how do you think this might cause both of us or both of our organizations to explore future business opportunities? So maybe I'll get you to comment on that. Yeah.
I think that one of the first things that we felt when COVID began was that our economic development initiatives were not resilient enough. A heavy reliance on tourism and hospitality, which seems like a no-brainer in this region, put us at risk in this environment. So diversifying our portfolio, having revenue streams that are less people-centered, and because our default setting is to do things that are people-centered. But having some revenue streams that are more impervious to this kind of unrest would be good. And the other one is cannabis retail. It's an essential service. Those stores stayed open and are doing very, very well. And Songhees Nation is investing in cannabis retail. So that's causing us to put some emphasis of our time on exploring cannabis retail.
Yeah, you touched upon a really good word, and I think that's exactly how we as an organization will move forward, and it's diversification. Like it or not, we've grown to be reliant on cruise. Cruise represents 70% of our revenue. So when 70% of your revenue evaporates overnight, it does cause you to think other opportunities we can explore and how we can diversify. And I think that's how we as an organization are going to look at this, and actually have begun to do that work as to how we can make use of the breakwater district at Ogden Point for non-cruise revenue, as an example, and looking at those opportunities. Another question's come up: if the situation with COVID-19 gets worse, how is Songhees Nation and GVHA prepared to respond? So maybe I'll respond, give you a chance to think about that, Christina. So I think for us, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is if COVID were to get worse, how would that impact our stakeholders and our properties? I'll take an example of Fisherman's Wharf. Some people think it's a seasonal operation, kind of May through September, and yes, it is for a number of our operators, but we also have a very robust float home community that calls Fisherman's Wharf home 365 days of the year. We also have liveaboards that we need to think about. So it's not just a May to September operation. So I think we would have to think about how do we continue to take steps to protect those residents. I think about the fact that if the situation were to get worse, would we have to look at, unfortunately, closing down the breakwater again? As most people know, we did take the position that we closed the breakwater early days of COVID because of social distancing, and then we were able to open it up. And from all reports, everyone's behaving well and there's social distancing on the breakwater. For us financially, it would be another very, very tough year for us. We are lucky in that we have been able to build up a modest reserve fund that is going to sustain us through this year. And if we did not see cruise next year, we financially could sustain the organization. Beyond that, it would be very, very challenging. And I would imagine that we would have to continue to make some very tough decisions around projects, around how do we protect and maintain our infrastructure. So I think that's how we would start to respond. Christina, what about you and the Songhees Development Corporation and just the broader Songhees Nation?
Well, I suppose, I mean, it in our revenue streams that are just starting to open up, if COVID gets worse, those get pulled back. So we go back to that sort of everything being frozen mode. But partly, I just think that even if it gets worse, we just have to keep learning to adapt. Like we have to find ways to have a socially distant economy and get past fears. And I'm not saying expose ourselves to danger, but do things safely, but do things. We have to keep living. So we have to find our way. I really hope that isn't the case, because there's a real struggle with our, on the catering side, food, serving food. Food is how I was thinking about our Christmas party for Songhees. Yeah. It's our Halloween party. Like, though we have these gatherings, we serve food, and they're so important for everyone. I mean, there's people you see once a year, every year at that event. And I'm thinking about, well, we do a boxed Christmas dinner delivery kind of thing, or, how does this work? So we have to find new ways of doing things so that we can carry on.
Yeah, I think that, I hope that, we could get into a whole other debate around, when will we see a vaccine, and is the vaccine going to be the silver bullet? And I mean, everyone has their personal opinion, and I think we just need to. I think the best thing that we can do, perhaps for both our organizations, is to assume this is going to be with us for a while,
Yeah.
and we need to adapt as best we can. And I think just just understand how just know that neither of us are, we can't all figure this out on our own. We've all got to try and figure this out together. Yeah, exactly. So a question's come up around highway coaches, and could they be dispatched for other uses for Canadians? So I believe that's in reference to the buses that we have, motor coaches we have down at the Breakwater District of Ogden Point, and they're used for shuttling passengers to various venues and to various cruise options, and act in a kind of a shuttle service. So Harbor Authority, we do not own the buses. We have a partnership with Pacific Northwest Transportation Services, and I'm sure that I know Pinwitz is a very, very proactive, very diligent organization, that if an outreach came to them from other parts of the country for those motor coaches to be used, I'm sure they would find a way to respond in an appropriate way. So that's on that. So a question's come up around our guiding principles, and guiding principles for First Nations, and what that means for both organizations. So maybe again, I'll talk to this, and I'll come back to you, Christina, to give you a minute to think about that. So Bruce, one of our guiding principles is to develop and foster our relationship with First Nations. And one of the steps we've taken to do that is we've created the role about a year ago of First Nations Engagement Manager, individual who's joined us and is doing an excellent job of reaching out and talking about how we can further our relationships with both the Songhees Nation and the Esquimalt Nation. And we're working through the Progressive Aboriginal program, PAR program, offered by the Canadian, the Canadian Center for Aboriginal Business, CCAB. Am I right there, Christina?
Canadian Council?
Yeah, Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business, a PAR program that really ensures, and it's not about getting, a pass or a fail. Well, it is about pass or a fail, but it's not about getting a gold, silver, or a bronze star. It's really getting us to go through the discipline of really working through and ensuring that we are doing everything we possibly can as an organization. So it's in our bylaws, it's in our guiding principles that we as an organization have a commitment to that. And I think from my perspective, it's a very real commitment. It's not just something that's up on the wall and that we look at and we say, oh, isn't that great? It's a real meaningful commitment that we have as an organization. And I think one of the best ways that we've committed to that is, for a while now, a long time, 1% of GVHA's operating revenue goes towards First Nations funds and initiatives. And that's one of the very meaningful ways that we have signaled our commitment to building and fostering our relationship with the nations. Do you want to comment on that, Christina?
Yes, and I want to say, yes, absolutely. I've been a witness to this, to GVHA's efforts, and I mentioned it's at the heart of the mandate, but I've been on the board for 6 years, I believe, in total now, maybe 7, somewhere in there, and I've watched and witnessed the organization carry that mandate along as important, and giving it the attention and time that it deserves, having a committee to focus on that. And every year there are sort of deeper efforts to do more, to make it go further. And part of the reason why I was happy to do this webinar with you today, Ian, is to say that, to let the public know that GVHA is walking the talk and is working really hard to show excellence in engagement with Indigenous communities. And I get to the honor of witnessing it, and it's good to see.
Well,
But I would like to speak to Songhees Nation's ideas and guiding principles. So I'm going to see if I can say the value statement by heart. Ait Shqualowin. That's a Lekwungen word meaning one heart and one mind. It's my favorite, very favorite word. And every time I say it, I put my hand on my heart. Ait Shqualowin. With one heart and one mind, we commit to love one another, to forgive one another, and to help one another with respect, honesty, and courage. So that's the value statement of Songhees Nation. And we've adopted that as the value statement for Songhees Development Corporation as well, because these values hold true in a business context, in how we pick who we do business with, how we handle things when they go wrong, that you always assume the best in people, and work with integrity and honesty and courage. So for us, the guiding principles are to bring your values with you into whatever you do in business. So for us, it means getting to know people really well before we do business together. The other ways that the value system of the Lekwungen people expresses itself in business is that the focus isn't all on profit generation. It's also on how many people can we employ, and are those household sustaining jobs, and are people on a career path that gives them fulfillment, and programs that contribute. Like, for example, we have ideas around tourism that we would like to tie in with conservation, particularly if we allow tours to go to the Chess Island group.
Yep.
There would need to be a conservation component of that. So they go hand in hand for us. So I think that there's a lot of corporations attempting to be good corporate citizens, but I think there's a natural inclination for many Indigenous economic development corporations to start out with that mindset, where there's these more holistic approach to prosperity and what prosperity means. Thank you.
Very powerful words. And as I was listening to them, I thought, wow, those words were obviously drafted well before COVID-19, but in this time of COVID, those words just mean, I think, even so much more, if I can say that. If you would allow me to say that, it just, I'm listening to that and I'm going, wow, that I think in these times, that's something that I think we all need to be aware of and keep in our minds. So thank you for sharing that. I see we don't have any more questions. I'm wondering, Christina, is there anything that we haven't touched upon today that you'd like to add?
I think I hit all of the high points I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure I told everybody to Google Explore Songhees, and I've done that.
Okay, good.
Giving you the hours of where to find our food truck. That's important.
Good, excellent. You got all the plugs in, so that's fantastic. So, Christina, I want to thank you. I've known you as long as I've been in this role, and I want to thank you for your guidance and for your encouragement of me and holding this organization and me accountable to our mandate to support First Nations. So thank you for that, and also thank you for taking the time to join me on another second edition of the Waterside Chat. So thanks again, and to all that are online, we wish you well. Stay safe, and we'll look forward to doing this again in the very, very near future. Thanks again, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.